Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has announced the implementation of measures to end the shortage of fuel and power across the country. Nigerians have been facing a shortage of fuel for a month now, followed by power outages over the last few days.
President Buhari's administration has blamed the scarcity of fuel on its 4 refineries that were either not operating or producing limited output, this leading to the country's oil regulator unable to sustain distribution to retail outlets nationwide, causing long queues outside filling stations during the past 2 months. Gasoline shortages are common in Nigeria, even though it is Africa's biggest crude producer, pumping an average of 1.27 million barrels per day. Meanwhile, government has reassured consumers that they will be protected against unfair price increases and vowed to stop the illegal trade of petrol on the black market that is leading to major disruptions to road, air and rail transport.
Well, Nigerians, like other African shoppers, have to tighten their belts. Inflation has sent the prices of commodities through the roof. Nigeria's inflation rate rose in February after recording a fall in January as the country faces fuel shortages that have helped push prices higher.
According to the National Bureau of Statistics, Nigeria's Consumer Price Index, CPI, which measures inflation, increased to 15.7% in February on a year-on-year basis against a January rate of 15.6%. The rise in food inflation was a combination of many factors, which include increases in bread and cereals amid a global shortage of wheat, worsened by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The West African country has faced fuel shortages since February after importing substandard fuel, resulting in weeks of severe scarcity and pushing prices of commodities higher. The effects of the COVID-19 pandemic has led to severe widespread increases in global food insecurity. Meanwhile, Nigeria's wholesale and retail food industry believes inflation can be curbed by producing enough local goods to satisfy demand.
At the newly juice company in Lagos, they're feeling the squeeze as the cost of fuel spirals in Nigeria. Inflation has been in the double digits since 2016, but now Russia's invasion of Ukraine has added to volatility in financial markets, sending commodity prices higher and affecting logistics. Chinyere Onya is head of quality, production and procurement at Newly Juice, which also owns a chain of restaurants. She says diesel forms a huge part of their operation expenses, but the cost has tripled in a matter of weeks.
It's gone from 215 to 680, so it's a lot. It's a lot on our side. And then you find also that the national grid power has not been very stable for a very long time, so we're forced to use diesel, and it's not a good time for business.
Inflation rose by 0.1% in February to 15.7%, according to the Statistics Office. Fuel shortages stoked transport and other costs. Meanwhile, the war in Ukraine could drive up the cost of wheat imports in the coming weeks. Wheat was Nigeria's second biggest import during the fourth quarter after petrol, the Statistics Office said. Newly Juice regular Hassan Taiwo says he thinks businesses have, so far, been shouldering the cost.
But chances are that if this continues for a longer period of time, the price of food will definitely have to go up. And when that happens, the business might experience less customers. You might end up spending less money and time buying food outside, and everybody loses.
The central bank is scheduled to meet next week to set interest rates and may be under pressure to harden its stance, considering the persistent double-digit inflation.
For the latest developments, we're now joined on the line by Hassan Taiwo Soweto, who's a member of the Democratic Socialist Movement. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So what is the latest in Nigeria in terms of power cuts and fuel supply concerns?
Well, the situation continues to go worse on a daily basis. Over the past few weeks, we have had cut in power supply, collapse, we have had the 2 collapses of the power grid. And this situation combines with an ongoing scarcity of fuel products, something which makes that the previous relief that Nigerians used to get by fueling their generators to try and provide electricity when there is power cut, that relief is currently not accessible because of the fuel scarcity and the rising cost of fuel. This means that households are experiencing power cuts without having fuel supply to power their generators. Businesses are closing down because of rising cost of diesel, to power their generators, and this is creating a very serious crisis economically for Nigeria today. Job losses have been experienced because a few plants are had to close because at the same time that all of this is happening, you also have the shock which the current war in Ukraine has created in certain supply, of products that some industries in Nigeria need, to have strong materials to create their products. So we are having different crises combining together, to create a major disruption of the Nigerian economy. And the effect on livelihood, has been very, very, very serious. Like I've stated, we have had job losses. But even beyond that is that in many cities in Nigeria today, transport costs has risen atrociously over the past few weeks. With wages income very low, this means that many workers are able to spend more than 30% of their monthly income, on transport costs. I mean, it causes a very, very debilitating situation here in Nigeria.
How has President Buhari explained this ongoing crisis, and what has he said he's going to do about it?
Well, the Buhari government is very clueless about the crisis we are currently experiencing, and this is not surprising because, like my organization, Democratic Socialist Movement, has consistently argued, the Buhari government is simply a continuation of the same capitalist regime we have had in Nigeria over time. So the government has been clueless as to what to do. Because initially, when the fuel crisis started last month, hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, carry on.
Okay, good. Because initially, when the fuel crisis started, towards the end of last month, the initial excuse was that Nigeria, there was import of adulterated fuel into the country, and it would take the National Petroleum Organization about a week or two, to make up for the shortfall in supply that situation caused. They had to withdraw the entire quantity of adulterated fuel, from the market. But we then realized that as soon as they made that promise, the fuel scarcity just continued week in, week out. And what appears to be happening now, is that the fuel marketers, are taking charge of the situation, wanting to compel the government, to withdraw subsidy. Don't forget that last month was the month when Nigerians were supposed to trip out for a general strike and protest against attempts by the government to withdraw fuel subsidy. The fear of what a general strike and mass protest could mean in the country compelled the government, to withdraw the decision to reverse fuel subsidy. And it appears that the fuel marketers, are using the current supply crisis to try and achieve the same level of fuel price that would have been the case if the government had carried on, with the withdrawal of fuel subsidy wanted to do, last month. And in a way, so what we are experiencing is like a gang up of fuel marketers to try and compel the price increase. Everywhere you go to now at fuel stations in Nigeria, petrol is selling for nothing less than 200 naira per litre, and that is the official figure. There's also the black market where petrol sells for as much as 500, 600 per liter, and diesel price has gone beyond the roof. In fact, this week, the airlines in Nigeria were contemplating withdrawing their services, that is stopping flights altogether. But the government has had to step in to try and ensure that did not happen. So that is the extent of the crisis we have at the moment. The government is supposed to have a handle on it. And it's not surprising because the oil and gas sector remains under the control of the private sector. And the government is only just collecting taxes and royalties. And that is why socialists have been arguing in Nigeria that the only way to go forward to avoid this kind of crisis is for the government to put the oil and gas sector under public ownership and democratic control and management of workers.
All right, so a great understanding and explanation of the fuel situation. I've been visiting Nigeria since the 90s and been watching the country over time. Power cuts are not new. What's different now?
Well, what is different now is that this power cut is happening 10 years after the power sector was privatized, with a promise that the Nigerian ruling elite and the international agencies like IMF and World Bank, that is the only way to end the crisis that Nigeria has always had in its power sector. So 10 years after, if we are still experiencing collapse of national grid and incessant power cuts, what it does show is that formula of privatization has completely failed. And the figures are quite clear. Since privatization 10 years ago, the power sector has not produced anything above 4,000 megawatts for a country that has more than 200 million people. And even as at last month, just before the national grid collapsed, the megawatt that was available was nothing above 2,000 megawatts, something which is not even enough to power a commercial city like Lagos, which has industries and businesses and all of that. So what we are seeing in Nigeria today is the fact that the private sector that is said to be the engine of economic growth and progress has failed atrociously for the past 10 years to do anything, despite the huge resources that the government continues to spend to bail out. Over the past 15 years, for instance, the Nigerian government has spent about $15 billion as investment into the power sector, even though the sector is under the control and ownership of the private sector. Apart from that, over the past 10 years, government claims that we spend $1.7 billion on a daily basis to subsidize electricity tariffs. And despite that, the power sector cannot guarantee in most places, even before the current breakdown and collapse of national grid, there is no place in Nigeria where you have 24-hour supply of electricity. Where I live, for instance, electricity is supplied for about 6 hours for 2 days, and then you have a whole day where there's not even a minute of electricity supply. In some other places, they supply electricity for about a few hours, 3 or 4 hours in a day, and the next day there's no supply at all until the third day. That is the pattern of the supply in Nigeria across most parts of the country. But like I said, the only reason why this is making it to the news is because this current power cut is coinciding with an ongoing fuel scarcity, which means that businesses, households have no alternative to even turn to. Unlike in the past period, when people just switch on their generator when you experiencing this supply. So when we experiencing the complete collapse of the privatization and the formula that the private sector could be an engine of growth, and that's why we usually are insisting that we have to go back, to looking at what can be done in terms of, public ownership of the power sector and ensuring that it is run democratically and according to the wishes, of the consumers. Today, that is not what is happening. People continue to pay for electricity that is not consumed, despite the fact that over the past period there has been attempts, to supply prepaid meters. There's a whole lot of manipulation and corruption going on in the pricing of electricity, so much that many households are paying above what they actually consume. And apart from that is the fact that, in most places, people, households and communities have to contribute money to repair electric cables and other electricity installations when they are damaged or when they need repairs. The privatized power sector owners, they make no contributions when it comes to repairs to electricity installations. Over the past 10 years, when they bought, the different distribution companies, they have made very little, if any, investment, into upgrading the facilities and the electricity infrastructure. And that's why today, we're in the current, we're in the mess that we are.
Hassan Taiwo Soweto, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very, very much indeed for joining us and giving us some insightful thoughts there on the situation in Nigeria. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that's a member of the Democratic Socialist Movement, Hassan Taiwo Soweto, speaking to us about Nigeria's travails, the largest economy on